Okay, so today we're in section 13.5, graphing a linear equation in standard form. All right, now, up until this point, we did slope-intercept form. All right, so I want you to view standard form as the sibling. All right, anybody have siblings? Any of you guys have siblings? Okay, so, all right, so a sibling, right, you have a lot in common. Right? So slope-intercept form and standard form, they're just different ways of writing a linear equation. So let's just say that you hate the way that you graph equations in standard form, which you won't hate it. You're like, oh, I do not want to graph an equation in standard form. You can rewrite any equation you want and do slope-intercept form. All right? I actually had a few 8th graders on this test. They were not confident in standard form, and I let you pick which one. So they graphed every equation in slope-intercept. Does that make sense? But standard form gives you another option, because I like the fastest way. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but give me the fastest way to get to my answer, and that's what I want to do. So standard form gives you another option for graphing. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so today is a little bit of review, okay, and a little bit of new. So, but before we get into that, let's talk about the formula for standard form. Our formula is AX plus BY equals C. AX plus BY equals C. You say, well, what's going on here? Well, A, B, and C are going to be numbers. They're going to be numbers. Okay? A, B, and C are numbers. So don't get crazy with it, but somebody give me a value that I can plug in for A. Just 2. Anything. 2, okay? So I could say 2x plus, all right, give me a value for B. 5. I heard 5. Okay? Plus 5y equals, and give me a number that's divisible by both 2 and 5. Okay, 10. All right, this equation is written in standard form. I have my x, and then my y, and then my number by itself. All right, so on your test, I'm going to ask you, it could be like a multiple choice question, which one of these equations is written in standard form? You're looking for x and y, and then your number by itself on the other side. Could you rewrite this equation in slope-intercept? No. Could you solve for y? Could you put the heart around the 5y and move the x? Yeah, you could do all that. Would you agree it's going to take you a couple steps, right? So instead of doing that, there's another way. Instead of having to rework everything, there's another option, okay? And that's what we're going to learn today. So you can rewrite. That's what this next statement is saying. Any linear equation, you can choose standard form or slope-intercept form. I could give you any linear equation and you can choose which format. Again, it comes down to what's going to be the less amount of work between the two. All right? Am I doing an okay job at kind of creating that parallel for you guys? All right? Same common objective, right? To graph the linear equation, there's just 2 ways of doing it. All right, so in example 1, we're going to do the one way, using slope and y-intercept. This is what you learned in 13.4. This is what you learned before spring break. All right, so we only did 1 day of this lesson, so I'm not expecting you guys to be experts. Is that okay? So can we just kind of breathe a sigh of relief, all right, I don't have to have this perfect, okay? Just follow along. So I need to use the slope and the y-intercept. Well, is this equation what we call ready to graph? Is this equation in slope-intercept? No, okay? So I can't just say -2 is my slope. I have to get the equation in slope-intercept first. If I want to use slope and y-intercept, it must be in y equals mx plus b. I want you to write that down. It has to be in y equals mx plus b if I want to use slope and y-intercept. All right? So, first equation. Where does my heart go? Okay, around the 3y. Now, eventually, guys, you're not going to be drawing hearts in Algebra 1 forever. Okay? Once you get to Algebra next year. You might still, okay? But eventually, you'll train your mind. You won't have to. Or you might already be at that point. Okay? That just shows you 3y, I'm doing second. How can I get negative 2x to cancel out so I can move it to the other side? Okay, I want to do the opposite. I want to plus it. Okay, add it. So I add 2x to both sides. Now let's bring everything down. I bring my 3y down. Okay, can I combine negative 6 plus 2x? No, they're not like terms. According to slope-intercept, which term do I bring down next? Plus 6 or minus 6? Minus 6. Now I'm ready to say m equals and b equals. Okay? And I'm going to use this information to graph the equation. All right? So, I'm sorry. I'm not ready yet. Not ready yet. I got to get y equals. What do I need to divide by to get y by itself? 3. Divide by 3 all the way across. Now, I have y equals 2/3 x. What's negative 6 divided by 3? Minus 2. Okay, now I can say m equals and b equals. So what number is in place of the m in the formula? 2/3. Do you think it would be helpful to leave that a fraction? Yeah, why? Yes, rise over run. Very good. What is my b value? What number is in place of the b? Negative 2. What does b mean again? The starting value, the y-intercept. That tells me this graph will definitely, this line will pass the y-axis at a value of negative 2. That's why I put the point here. You guys following me? Whatever number is the last number in my equation, that's going to be the first point on my graph because I know the line crosses at that value. Now, from here, I can follow my what? Follow my slope, my rise over my run. So how many do I rise according to my slope? 2. Rise 2, and I run 3. That gives me the second point, and now I can draw my line. All right? So remember, guys, this is, try to draw it as straight as you can, too. Use the edge of your badge to draw it as straight as you can. So this is what you learned in section 13.4. It's just been like a week and a half. Okay? Do you kind of remember this, though, from before? Maybe some pieces of it? You don't remember any of it? No. Okay. All right. So next, well, maybe this next one will go a little bit smoother. Okay? So hopefully you're going to get better for every question that we work. All right. Next equation. Negative 2/3 x plus y equals 0. So you need to solve for y. Again, if you want to use slope and y-intercept, it has to be in y equals mx plus b form. It has to. All right, so can somebody raise your hand and tell me, what do you think you need to do to get y by itself? All right, so I want everybody to just think just for a couple seconds, how can I get y by itself? How can I get negative 2/3 x to cancel to the other side? Haley, what do you think?
Add 2/3.
Yes, very good. I want to add 2/3 x, right? If you add the opposite, doesn't it cancel? All right, or if you do the opposite, so now add 2/3 x to the right side. What do you guys notice is different about this problem? What do y'all notice? What do you notice about your b value? It's 0. So y equals 2/3 x. You don't have to write 0. I mean, you can. You can write plus 0 if you want. But but it's just 2/3 x. But if the last number, my b value, is my first point, where would my first point go? On the 0. This is what we call, it starts with a P. This equation is a, Dylan knows it.
Proportional relationship.
Yes, it is a proportional relationship. Remember, my b value is 0. So when x is 0, so is y. Okay? Remember the example, if I don't buy any ice cream, I'm not going to pay any money. Right, I'm not going to get any ice cream if I don't pay any money. If my x value is 0, y will also be 0. Okay, so first point goes on 0. Now where do I go from that point? Where do I go from that point, guys? Up to over 3. Now, I think, do you guys have 2 separate graphs on your notes for this? Okay, so you're going to have to look at my graph to answer this next question because it's not necessarily part of this example, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway. Okay, make sure you draw the arrows on the ends. That shows you the solutions continue. All right, look at my graph for a second. What do you notice about those 2 lines?
Straight. Oh, proportional.
They are parallel.
I knew that.
So this is going to be on your quiz on Friday. Look at the first equation and look at the second equation and ignore the graph for a minute. What hint do you see in the equations that would tell you the lines are going to be parallel, Emily?
That the arrows mean that they just keep going to the right line.
Right, but look at the equations. There's a clue in the equations that I circled in red over here. There's a clue that these 2 lines are going to be parallel. Destiny, what do you think?
The Y is the same.
The y is not the y, but the Michael.
The X or the number 2/3.
Which is what?
The slope.
It's the slope.
Yeah, I knew that.
Abby's like, come on, y'all are killing me. The slope, right? Does everybody see? Do you guys see the slope is 2/3 on both? So check this out. You've got 2 lines, right? You rise 2, run 3. Rise 2, run 3. Those lines will never intersect. If they have the same slope, rise, run, they're never going to cross. Okay? So if I gave you 4 equations, multiple choice, and I said, choose the 2 options, choose 2 of these equations that are parallel, would you know how to identify it? Look at the slope. If the slope is the same, they're parallel. All right? Tracking with me? Okay. So that's one option. I can graph it using slope and y-intercept. Here's my second option. Now I can use x and y intercepts. But wait a second. I know what y-intercept means. That means the point where the line, what? Crosses the y-axis. So what do you think x means?
Crosses the x-axis.
Crosses the x-axis. So I want to talk about this logically, okay? So I'm going to appeal to common sense. How many of you guys would say, I got a lot of common sense? Me. Okay, good. Okay, that's not me. My husband picks on me all the time because he says that, I'm the smart one of the 2, but I don't have as much common sense, which is accurate between the 2 of us. Okay, so if it crosses, I'm just going to draw a random point on the graph, okay? Don't do this, just kind of pay attention. If I were to draw a point on the x-axis, what is the y value for that point? What's the y value? No, the x value is 4, but how far does it go on y? 0. Okay, what about this point? What's my y value? 0. What about this point? So would you agree that in order for the line to cross the x-axis, the y value will be 0? Yeah, it has to be. Okay? Because if my y value was, let's say, my y value was anything else. Let's say my y value was -1. It would be down here. That's not the x-intercept. in order for it to cross the x-axis, y has to be 0. You follow me? So in order for it to cross the y-axis, what does your x value have to be?
0.
0. It has to be 0. You can't go either way on the x-axis. Do you understand that? So to identify the x-intercept, okay, the y value has to be 0. So this is what it looks like in the equation. I explained that so this will make sense to you. To use x and y intercepts, you must write your equation twice. So I want you to write your equation, the same equation again. X plus 3y equals negative 3. Well, why would you write it twice? Because on the first equation, you're going to find the x-intercept. On the second equation, you're going to find the y-intercept. All right? So in order to find the x-intercept, what did my y value have to be? 0. So you're going to plug in 0 for y. In order to find the x-intercept, I must plug in 0 for y. And because I showed you on the graph, does everybody understand why 0 has to be the y value? Okay? Because I can't go up or down at all in order for the point to be right on x. Well, what's 3 times 0? Cancels out. So now x equals what? Negative 3. And just like that, I know which value it's going to cross the x-axis. It's going to cross x at negative 3. Well, in order to get negative 3, I have to have a 0 y value. So negative 3, 0 is where this line crosses x. So guess what you're going to do for y? Do the opposite. In order to get your y-intercept, your x value has to be what? 0. Okay? So if it's 0, all right, that just cancels out, right? 0 plus 3y equals negative 3. Well, that just cancels. 0. How do I solve for y?
1.
Not 1. Negative 1. Y equals negative 1. To find y, I had to plug in 0 for x. So that's, let me write it next to it. That's going to be 0, negative 1. So now go to your graph and go 0, down 1. So you found the point where it crosses x and the point where it crosses y. And now you have 2 points, which is all you need to graph your line. All right? Any questions? Okay? Maybe you're not ready to take the test, right? Okay? But with a little bit more practice, I think you guys will get it. So let's do the next one. Okay? And this will be the last one that we do for today because I want to get some practice in on your homework together. All right? If that's okay with you guys. Okay, so I'm going to write the equation twice. 2x minus y equals 8. I'm going to write it twice. All right? To solve for x, what do I need to plug in for y? 0. Okay? So I can't have two variables I'm solving for at the same time. So if I plug in 0, does everybody agree y just cancels? Right? So you can just cross out the y. But you do need to realize I plugged in 0 for y. That's why it cancels. Now, how do you solve for x? Divide by 2. All right, so x equals 4. Well, to get 4, I had to plug in 0 for y. So that's why my ordered pair is 4, 0. All right, so I want you to go over 4, up 0. That's my x-intercept. All right? Now, I want you guys to work with your table buddies. Be careful. What is understood in front of the y?
1.
A 1. So be careful about that, okay? I want you to find the y-intercept and then plot it and graph your line. Okay? All right, so in order to solve for y, I have to plug in 0 for x. So the x term 2 times 0 is 0. Okay? X goes away. Divide both sides by what, guys?
2, 1,
Negative 1. And y equals what? Not 8, but negative 8. So it's just going to go off the graph a little bit. No biggie. Okay? And then you're going to draw your line through those 2 points. All right, you have 2 of these on your homework tonight.
Let's go. Oh, that's easy.
There's 2 different.
Okay?
Both of them on the same graph.
You have 2 graphs. I only have 1 graph on my slide. Okay? So you'll have these 2 lines on different graphs. All right, so that's going to be it for today. We'll do the modeling real life problem tomorrow, but that'll be it for most of your lesson today.